Hello everyone, welcome to this session. My name is Ms. Rejoice Otaru from Sokoine University of Agriculture, Department of Tourism and Recreation. Our today's topic will be climate change and the World Heritage Sites, which falls under Module 4. If you remember last sessions, we discussed about destination image, which was a topic under Module 3. But today we are going to cover Module 4, and by the end of this module, I'll expect you to be able to examine the climate change risk and impact on heritage resources, and to be able to analyze ways on predicting and managing climate change impact, and finally to evaluate World Heritage Convention role to climate change risk and impact management. Climate change is one of the biggest global threats to World Heritage Sites. Changes in temperature, rainfall, sea level, and extreme weather events are affecting both natural and cultural heritage around the world. So this model will help you to understand how climate change risk impact heritage sites, how this risk can be predicted, and how its impact can be managed, and the role of the World Heritage Convention in addressing the climate change impacts. This model will focus on understanding how climate change affects World Heritage Sites and how this impact can be predicted, managed, and addressed through the international frameworks. It examines the escalating threats of climate change to UNESCO World Heritage Sites, both cultural and natural heritage sites. And this model will focus on integrating scientific risk assessment, adaptive management strategies, and policy evaluation under the World Heritage Convention. So this model is going to cover the key 3 areas, and the first key area that this model is going to cover is to examine the nature and scale of climate-induced risk to heritage resources, including material-specific vulnerabilities and regional disparities. So the climate change risk and impact will be the subtopic that will be covered under this session 1. And in the session 2, we will cover the predictive management of risk and impact of climate change, whereby we will explore the predictive frameworks and management responses to climate change risk and impacts on World Heritage Sites. This will include risk prediction frameworks, site-level adaptation strategies, as well as early warning system. And the last key area of this Module 4 will be convectional policy, and this part we will cover in the session 3, whereby we will analyze the institutional and legal role of the World Heritage Convention in addressing climate change risk and impact on World Heritage Sites. This will include evolution of the roles of convention, as well as global governance implication, as well as legal obligation of the state members. So let's start with climate change risk and impact on heritage resources. But before we start, let's see what is the meaning of climate change. The climate change refers to the long-term changes in temperature, rainfall pattern, sea level, and weather extremes, mainly caused by human activities. The human activities which may influence climate change may include deforestation, pollution, coastal development, overfishing, construction of buildings and roads, and the other related human activities, which will directly or indirectly affect the climate and result to climate change risk and impact both to the heritage resources, including natural and cultural heritage resources. So let's see how human activities can result to climate change. So for example, the burning of fossil fuel, including coal, oil, and gas, which may result to the emission of carbon dioxide, which is one of the greenhouse gases, will result to the release of those harmful gases from the fuel, or increasing, which will increase atmospheric carbon dioxide level. We all know the effect of this greenhouse effect, which will affect or will develop the greenhouse, the release of this carbon dioxide gases or greenhouse gases will directly affect the ozone layer and cause the ozone layer depletion. But also other human activities like deforestation and land use change may result to emission of carbon dioxide, and we know when the trees are cut down, it reduces carbon dioxide sinks, whereby the process of trees will help to absorb the carbon dioxide and at the same time release oxygen to the environment. But when the trees are cut down by human being, this will result to carbon dioxide sinks due to deforestation or lack of trees in the environment. So another human activities is like agriculture and livestock, whereby the release of methane, which is one of greenhouse gases, will result to the depletion of ozone layer, which may cause global warming and increase in temperature, which directly results to climate change risk. Another human activity which really affects the oxide and carbon dioxide. So another human activities include waste and landfill, as well as pollution activities. All of this will result to the organic waste decomposition anaerobically, which will release the methane gas, and at the end of the day will directly affect the climate of a particular area. What we have to understand is that these human activities, if are well managed and controlled in a good manner, it will highly help to reduce the climate change risk and impacts to our environment, especially to heritage sites and resources. So, what are these impacts of the climate change to heritage resources? One of the impact is melting of glaciers and ice sheets, which result to rising in sea level. And we all know when the sea level rise, it may disrupt the ecosystem within the coral reefs, but also the rising of sea level may result to disallocation of the resources around the marine area. Another impact is ocean acidification, which result to harming coral reefs or animal habitats, and this will actually affect the heritage resources of a particular site. But also changes in rainfall patterns, which result to droughts and floods, and all this may result to millions of natural heritage resources may be displaced due to flooding. Another is changes in rainfall pattern that include droughts and floods. All this may result to millions of natural heritage resources may be displaced due to flooding, including climate refugees, loss of homes, livelihood, and cultural and natural heritage resources or sites. Another impact will include loss of authenticity and integrity of heritage sites, which will reduce the number of tourists, and this will happen because when the authenticity of the heritage sites is lost, this will naturally affect the number of tourists who will be attracted to that particular destination. But another impact to the heritage resource will include permanent damage or destruction of irreplaceable cultural assets. This may include the cultural landscape, and the permanent damage of these resources will directly affect the production of the tourism around that particular heritage sites. But also displacement of the local communities connected to heritage due to floods, drought, and the other extreme weather conditions, which will really affect the heritage resources management to that particular area. And another impact is reduced tourism and economic benefit, because as we have said, if the site will lose their authenticity and integrity, actually the number of the tourists will be reduced, and the absence of those attractions will automatically result to the few number of tourists or lack of tourists to that particular destination, which will reduce the economic benefit, which will be obtained through the interest fee, membership fee, and the other income generation strategies in the particular heritage sites. So the climate change poses an existential threat to both cultural and natural world heritage properties, with impact already being felt globally. From the study of global study using hazard vulnerability exposure HVE framework, it was shown that 80% of cultural heritage sites are already experience harmful heat and moisture disturbances. So for this data, it shows that climate change is at risk of destructing heritage resources, and the immediate action should be taken so as to rescue the condition of heritage sites in different areas globally. So this 2025 HVE framework is the study which represents cutting-edge quantitative method for assessing how climate change hazards physical affects World Heritage Sites. So it integrates climate projections, material science, and geometrical exposure data to offer a predictive and comparative risk, helping planners, conservationists, and policymakers to make informed decisions about prioritization and adaptations. So how are they going to make prioritization? Is from this particular important study, which has given us a really situation in the destination, and it also helped them policymakers to come up with strategies to prioritize those areas that are highly in the risk stage, and also to help the destination managers to be able to adapt from those changes or threats that are caused by climate change. So the other major climate change risk to heritage sites include rising in temperature, sea level rise, coastal erosion, drought causing structural stress, floods and storms from intense precipitation, and the wildfire releasing massive carbon dioxide. All of these major climate change risk heritage sites raise awareness to all stakeholders to see how can we be able to manage, but before managing them, how to predict. So this damage to historical building due to floods and heavy rains, and cracking and decay of monuments caused by heat loss of archaeological sites due to erosion, but also destruction of coastal heritage sites by rising sea level. All of these impacts raise awareness to act immediately so as to work, so as to solve the current problem that is facing heritage resources, which is the risk or threats that are caused by climate change. So, for example, in Stone Town of Zanzibar, it is at risk from sea level rising and flooding, and because of this risk, which is brought with human activities, which result to climate change, that means there should be a way to adapt and to bring solution and strategies so as to rescue these heritage sites that are in danger, like Stone Town of Zanzibar. And we all know that if the sea level will rise and flooding will happen around the heritage sites, especially in the marine areas, what will happen is that we are going to lose biodiversity, but disrupt severely the ecosystem around those areas, which act as the attraction to those heritage sites. And if that happens, we all know it is going to happen to affect directly tourism, but also the individual environment and the local community surrounding that heritage sites. So it's more of challenges, and it's not only about challenges, it's how are we going to solve those challenges or to deal with those challenges so as to rescue the heritage resources. Apart from the mentioned impact, there are also more other impacts, including coral bleaching due to increased sea level temperature, but also loss of biodiversity, as I've said before, but also drying of wetlands, increased forest fires, and if the forest fire increase, we always know how the biodiversity and ecosystem of that particular area will be affected because of that fire. So another example is from the coral reef in the Great Barrier Reef of Australia, which is strengthened by rising oceanic temperature and loss of biodiversity around that particular area. So this marks the end of session 1. We have seen the risk and impacts of climate change to the heritage resources, and in the next session we are going to see then how we can predict those risks of the climate change and how we can be able to understand the impacts of climate change on World Heritage Sites, as well as to predict the occurrence of those impacts before even they have happened. So for this session, we are going to end here. In the next session, we will continue to see the predicting measures or strategies to heritage resource climate change risk. Thank you for listening, and see you in the next session.